Good morning, dear students. Now, today we are going to begin again the same topic, the portrait of a lady. Further lines from the textbook are: as the years rolled by, we saw less of each other. For some time, she continued to wake me up and get me ready for school. When I came back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being round, etc. This made her unhappy. She could not help me with my lessons. She did not believe in the things they taught at the English school and was distressed that there was no teaching about God and the scriptures. One day I announced means I declared that we were being given music lessons. She was very disturbed to her music had lewd associations. It was the monopoly of harlots and beggars and not meet for gentlefolk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. She rarely talked to me after that. Dear students, let us have some of the word meanings. Years rolled by means time passed. Distressed means suffer from extremely sorrow, anxiety, or pain. Lewd association means indecent or obscene. Harlots means prostitutes. Gentlefolk means people of noble birth. Let us have the explanation of the above passage. As the years passed in the city, their interaction reduced. For some time, she continued to wake him up and would get him ready for school. She would ask him what he had learned in school that day. The scientific terminology and English words made her unhappy, and she didn't know the language. She could not help him with the lessons, as his new school never taught him about God and religious scriptures. This made her sad. She did not approve of such an education. When she came to know that he was getting music lessons, it disturbed her. According to her, music was indecent and it was an art for the beggars and prostitutes, and not for those belonging to decent families. She didn't like that he learned music, so she stopped talking to him. Dear students, let us have further lines from the textbook, which are: when I went up to university, I was given a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. My grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone. From sunrise to sunset, she sat by her wheel, spinning and reciting prayers. Only in the afternoon she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows, while she sat in the veranda breaking the bread into little bits. Hundreds of little birds collected round her, creating a veritable bedlam of chirpings. Some came and perched on her legs, others on her shoulders, some even sat on her head. She smiled but never shooed them away. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her. Word meanings are: snapped means break suddenly and completely. Seclusion means the state of being private and away from the people. Accepted her seclusion with resignation means the grandmother accepted a lonely life as she accepted the separation from her grandson without objection. A spinning wheel means a household machine with a wheel attached to it for spinning yarn. A veritable bedlam of chirpings means refers to the noise and confusion caused by the chirpings of the sparrows. Veritable means used to describe something which is very interesting or unusual. Bedlam means confusion. Chirpings means the noise of a small bird. Perched means alight or rest on something. Shoot means make a person or animal go away by shouting or saying shoo. Explanation of the above passage is, as the author went to university, he had a room of his own. The common link of his friendship with his grandmother that they had when they shared the same room was changed now, and thus his friendship with her ended. She became more private and spent her whole day spinning wheel from sunrise to sunset. She would sit and silently recite her prayers. In the afternoon, she used to feed sparrows in the veranda, breaking the bread into small pieces. She would feed hundreds of birds. The birds would gather around her. Some sat near her, some on her legs, some on her shoulders, few on her head. She never showed them, but always smiled. She was the happiest in that half an hour during the whole day. Dear students, further lines from the textbook are, when I decided to go abroad for further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I would be away for 5 years, and at her age, one could never tell, but my grandmother could. She was not even sentimental. She came to leave me at the railway station, but did not talk or show any emotion. Her lips moved in prayer. Her mind was lost in prayer. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of a rosary. Silently she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. But that was not so. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at the station. She did not look a day older. She still had no time for words, and while she clasped me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayers. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows, whom she fed longer and with frivolous rebukes. Dear students, sentimental means here a feeling of nostalgia, sadness, or tenderness, an emotional feeling. Beads means a small piece of glass or stone threaded with others to make a rosary or necklace. Cherished means hold something dear. Moist means wet. Imprint means impression or stamp. Clasped means hold tightly. Frivolous means not having any serious purpose or light-hearted. Rebuke means disapproval of something or someone. Frivolous rebukes means light-hearted scoldings. Explanation of the above passage is, when the author decided to go abroad for further studies, he believed it would be the last time he would see her, as he would be gone for 5 long years. As they all reached the station, she held him tightly and kissed his forehead. He thought it was the last physical contact with her. The wet impression of her hand was dear to him. She was not sentimental at all. When he came back after 5 years, she came to meet him at the station. She looked just the way she did 5 years ago, not a day older. She held him again in her arms and was still reciting her prayers. He noticed on the first day of his arrival that only sparrows would make her happy. Dear students, further lines from the textbook are, in the evening a change came over her. She did not pray. She collected the women of the neighborhood. got an old drum and started to sing. For several hours, she thumped the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum and sang of the homecoming of warriors. We had to persuade her to stop to avoid overstraining. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. The next morning, she was taken ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go, but my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. She was not going to waste any more time talking to us. Dear students, let us have some of the meanings of the words. Thumped means hit. Sagging means sinking downwards. Dilapidated in a state of despair or ruin. It means disappointment. The sagging skins of the dilapidated drum means the loose surface of the worn out drum. Persuade means to talk someone into doing something. Overstraining means overdoing something. Omitted means leave out or exclude something. So now let us have the explanation of the above passage. An evening she didn't follow her regular routine of praying. She collected a few women from the neighborhood, got a drum and started singing with them. She thumped the ruined part of the drum and sang along. The whole family persuaded her to stop as she might get ill due to exhaust- exhaustion. The next morning she fell ill. It was a mild fever. The doctors told them that it would go, but she took it differently. According to her, she would die soon as her end was near. She started chanting prayers as she didn't want to waste her last hours in talking to anyone. So, as you know that she was very committed to herself and for religious facts, and when she realized that her end was near, so she didn't want to waste even single moment of her life. Further lines from the books are: we protested, but she ignored our protests. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor spread on her face, and we knew that she was dead. Some meanings are: protested means express an objection against something or someone. Pallor means an unhealthy pale appearance. Explanation of the above passage is: the family protested, tried to stop her, but she lay peacefully on her bed, chanting prayers and doing her beads. Suddenly she stopped, and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A calm, pale appearance spread on her face, and she was dead. We lifted her off the bed and, as is customary, laid on her the ground and covered her with a red shroud. After a few hours of mourning, means lamentation, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher, this is called bier, to take her to be cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stopped halfway in the courtyard. All over the veranda and in her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff wrapped in the red shroud, thousands of sparrows sat scattered on the floor. There was no chirping. We felt sorry for the birds, and my mother fetched some bread for them. She broke it into little crumbs. Crumbs means small pieces of the bread, the way my grandmother used to, and threw it to them. The sparrows took no notice of the bread. When we carried my grandmother's corpus off, corpus means here dead body, they flew away quietly. They means here sparrows. Next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. Dear students, there are some word meanings. Let us have them. Customary means here traditional. Crude means here in a natural state or roughly made. Cremated means dispose of or burn a body after it is dead. Blaze means a very large burning fire. Shroud means a piece of cloth used to wrap a dead person. Corpus means dead body. Dear students, let us have the explanation of the above passage. The family lifted her from the bed. Her means here grandmother. Laid her on the ground and wrapped her with a red colored cloth. Thousands of sparrows sat silently near her. The author's mother fetched some bread for the birds, but they didn't eat any. They flew away later as the family carried the dead body. The sweeper removed the crumbs the next morning. The birds were so sensitive. They did not want to eat bread but were mourning. Mourning means lamenting or just showing their sadness. The death of the one who had fed them for so many days. So, dear students, in this way, the whole chapter gets completed. Thank you, students.